Hi, I'm Lou with another episode of My Car Story. Today I'm in the northwest suburbs of Illinois and I'm with Tom Stefani, who's the son of Nicky Chevrolet owner. So we're going to find out about why the K was backwards in Nicky, and we're going to find out about why it was called Nicky when his last name's Stefani. But right now, before we get to all that, what year, make, and model is the special car we have behind us?
Okay, it's a 1965 Genie Mk10. Built for the Can-Am and USRC series.
There was a special guy who owned this car. Who was that?
It was Dan Blocker, better known as Haas, Haas Cartwright on the Bonanza TV show.
Let's take a look at Haas's car. So as we come over here, and you'll see this one is pure horsepower. Nice. Now you're going to find out that this car was painted originally green. You're going to see a shot of this car. You're going to see Dan Blocker with it from there. We're also going to take this piece off the back so we could see that. But I thought this was a great way to start it out. Notice the horseshoe there. There's Dan Blocker and your horseshoe right there for the horsepower. Let's open up the garage just to show a little more light on this one, if you don't mind. And I did that intentionally so that the light wouldn't hit it there. So Tom, come on alongside me. How long have you had this one?
I bought this car in 2002 from a gentleman in Minnesota by the name of Floyd Sable, and he had restored it from parts and pieces.
So he had this car and restored it for you. So this is to the 1966 colors.
Yes, primarily late 1966, probably July on. From July on, it was for the last part of the USRC series and all the Can-Am series, or most of the Can-Am series.
And I also noticed Vinegaroon. Am I saying it right?
Yep, Vinegaroon.
Vinegaroon, thank you.
Vinegaroon.
So they named the cars back then, just like you'd name a boat. Mm-hmm. And number 95, that was the car. You've got your mirrors there. 4-speed, I'm assuming?
Yes, it is a 4-speed.
Okay.
And it's a Huffaker gearbox that's in it, so it's an original gearbox.
Are these wheels magnesium?
The fronts are magnesium, the rears are aluminum. These are original Genie wheels on the front, and those are aluminum wheels. They did not have the rears at the time. Well, they picked up the pieces and parts to do it.
Got it. Let's take a look at the front of it. You'll see it had a different front end originally when Dan Blocker had it, but then there was an accident. Tell me a little bit about that accident.
Yeah, the accident was at Watkins Glen in June of 1966, and John Cannon spun the car going into the S's, and Mark Donahue hit the car and virtually destroyed it. It had to be almost rebuilt from scratch. And then they put the new body on it because John Cannon and Blocker separated at that point for a variety of reasons. And they brought in a different driver to drive the car.
Got it. What we're going to do too is we're going to take a moment and we're going to take that back piece off the engine. And while we do that, we've actually got some trunk and treats for you. So as we start our trunk and treats, you can see the car in its current color and configuration. What year did that color change? Because you're going to see what it originally looked like with Dan Blocker. When did that car change to that color in the Nicky?
The color changed in 1966 after John Cannon had an accident at Watkins Glen with Mark Donahue, as a matter of fact. It was the first Can-Am race, or first USRC race for Mark Donahue. And they had a coming together in the S's going up the hill. And he crashed the car.
So they got their S's stuck together.
Yeah, pretty much. They crashed. After the crash, they had to take it back out to California and have the frame repaired, and the body was destroyed. And so they put a different body on it, a new body, which was the white and the purple body. And at that point, John Cannon and Dan Blocker parted ways. And so the green body went away because that was the body color that John Cannon insisted on. And so from that point on, it was a white and purple body, and it was more of a McLaren-like look to it. Basically a knockoff McLaren body.
And now, one of the questions, since I have the Nicky's son here, why was it called Nicky's? Clearly your last name is not Nicky.
Yeah, the Nicky name came from my grandfather had built homes as well as had a roofing supply company. And when he sold a home to the Nicky family, Mr. and Mrs. Nicky, and Mr. Nicky passed away, and Mrs. Nicky didn't have the money to buy the home, but was willing to trade the dealership for the home, and so they gave her title to the home, and they got the dealership. And back then it was a depression, so the depression was one of those times where car dealerships were probably not worth all that much money, and the home was worth more to Mrs. Nicky than the dealership.
Got it. So it was actually Nicky Chevrolet the whole time.
Yes.
Now here's the question. We could see, what vintage is this sign here?
That sign is around 1957 or 58. I think you can see the Chevys in that.
Yeah, 58 Chevys. Thank you. And then, when did it become the famous sign we know with the backwards K? How'd that happen?
It wasn't that much longer. Maybe a couple years later.
So let's say 59, 60.
60, somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
That my dad found or Whiteway Signs was hired to replace the signs on the west end of the dealership, and at that point, Whiteway replaced the sign, but they put the K upside down.
Yeah.
The K was upside down, and so after they had installed it, they went into the dealership and said, "We realized our mistake. The K is upside down. We'll change it, the next day or so." And too many people saw that K upside down and came into the dealership to tell Nicky, or tell my dad and tell the people inside that they had made a mistake on the sign. My dad thought, "Wow, that's great. It's attracting attention to the people. Or it's attracting attention of the people." And they because of that, he started giving upside down cake certificates to them, and so he decided to change all the logos, all the signage, and everything. And there's a little bit more to the story too, because after a while they decided to do it red, so it really stood out, as you can see in the picture. It's red. And there was a little concern at the time, because it was during the time that we were having a lot of issues with the Soviet Union at the time. With Khrushchev was the leader of the Soviet Union at the time. And my dad was a little bit concerned a red K might be associated with Khrushchev. And so they were concerned about it, but they didn't, they decided to try it and leave it alone, and it turned out that it wasn't an issue at all, and so it was and
it turned out to be the whole thing we still see today.
It was a whole Megillah, and one of those things, and who knew that it was going to be that iconic, I guess you'd say.
Right.
People remember Nicky Chevrolet with the backward K.
Yeah.
And truly, it's not truly backwards. It's really just 180 degrees rotated.
And there's the actual story from the son as well. We're going to go back to the car.
All right.
I'm in the driver's seat. Now, I want to show you something that you wouldn't normally see, but it has to have doors. Now, why does it have doors?
It has doors simply because of the rules when they built, or when they homologated these cars, or at least classified them as FIA Group 7 cars. They had to have 2 seats, and they had doors, passenger doors. And very originally, at the original homologation, or when they came up with this thing, they had to have a spare tire too.
Is that right?
Yeah, but that went away. The spare tire went away, but the seat has always been required, and the doors have been required as well.
Now we've got the air ventilation for the brakes, I'm assuming, and then you've got this bundle of snakes here connected. We have the Nicky valve covers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And we're going to actually 351 cubic inch or 3?
It's got about 380 now.
380 now? Okay.
We had to rebuild it, and we stroked it, or the engine builder stroked it out, so it's a big stroker motor.
So what do you got to do to fire?
All right, well, you got the master, here, we got the master switch that you got to turn on.
Okay, 1.
Okay, and then you turn on the ignition, which
2.
gives it power, and then you got a fuel pump.
I hear that.
Yeah, and as soon as the fuel pump gets satisfied, as soon as it gets enough pressure in there, then it'll stop. And then you press the button.
shut that down so we can put it all together, and then we're gonna take it for a ride. All right, let's go. How's it feel?
Oh, great. It's running good.
Oh, great. It's like a go-kart. Tom, I know it was pulling in.
I would have gone straight, but we're.
I know it was a little ride, but it was a good one. Thanks for being on my car.
You bet. Well, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for putting me on.